Hey folks, Jimmy here, aka Palette of the Dead. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the latest issue of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormbringer magazine. Now, as per usual with all these videos, if you like them, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course, drop me a comment down below. I love hearing back from you guys. It goes a massive way to helping out the channel too. Now, this week we're on issue 49 of Stormbringer magazine, and we get more backup and more kind of reinforcements for our Sylvaneth range. So with this one we get 5 of the Spite Revenants. This sprue will obviously look very, very familiar because it can also be made into the Tree Revenants, which we've already had. So if you want to, you can make 5 more Tree Revenants. If you don't want to, obviously you make the Spite Revenants like the magazine wants you to. So there are different heads and different arms and stuff like that for depending on which one you go in, but pretty cool stuff. I'm quite happy with these guys. Obviously with them being Sylvaneth, they are a little bit spindly, so there are some very fragile pieces to it. So obviously things like the claws and them talons and stuff like that can be quite a bit of a pain in the ass when it comes to clipping them off because they have a chance of breaking, so just be careful with them. But otherwise, really, really good stuff there. So happy days. So a pretty decent sized sprue as well, which is always really, really good. Moving into this week's issue, first off we are greeted by the Realm of Death. So the Realm of Death, in a land of half-light, armies of spirits float to war, riding the stale corpse winds across the realms. Mournful dirges echo over barren lands where both the living and the dead make it their homes. This is Shyish, the Realm of Death. In this realm, grim finality beckons, and all is slowly winding down towards its inevitable ending. So, Shyish, obviously being the Realm of Death, is a land racked by grief and loss. Many eons ago, it contained the afterlives to which all mortal souls were sent. Now, it is the domain of Nagash, and he seeks to exert total control over the realm's tortured lands and the souls inhabiting them. So, obviously the Realm of Death being Shyish, presided over by the great necromancer himself, Nagash. He commands his legions of Nighthaunt, the Soulblight Gravelords, Ossiarch Bone Reapers, the Death Rattle Skeletons, zombies, and such like, and they're quite interesting, quite unique, and very, very different. So yeah, really, really good stuff. I genuinely like seeing the Realm of Death. I think it's one of the most interesting kind of locations, and not as much as known about it as some of the others. So it's quite kind of secretive and quite inkept, and obviously was the main setting for good old Soul Wars, which was the 2nd edition of Age of Sigmar, which was really, really cool. So a pretty interesting place. So a very, very interesting realm within the Mortal Realms. Obviously, Realmstone for Shyish is grave sand, so which takes a form of small grains of greyish purple crystal, and it grants the holder power over death, allowing them to both inflict and deny it, which is a very unique property for a Realmstone. They are the land of endings, so Shyish is a land of endings as much as it is a land of physical death. Here, all things gradually decline and finish. With time, even the dead will die, their afterlives fading into silent darkness. And obviously it is another realm that is racked by war. So in the Realm of Death, wars are fought over the fate of mortal souls. Nagash, the great necromancer, seeks to extend his domain across all the realms, but even Shyish is not wholly his. Souls of the Stormcast Eternals are snatched from his grasp and taken to Azir, raising his bitter ire, and the settlement of mortals within his domain is an affront to his designs. And then obviously there are the Chaos Gods who like to provide incursions into Shyish to claim souls as well, especially the followers of Khorne and such like. So yeah, really, really cool stuff and quite interesting as well. Then we move on, we have the Enemy Within for the Peril section. So Chaos grows like a weed under a stone, ever searching for the slightest crack through which it might come to the light. Who knows where that crack may be found? Is it in your neighbour or your aged parents? Is it in you? When that fatal weakness is found, chaos will burst through and so corrupt and contaminate all around it. Spilling out like a plague from a vial, so does chaos make its way into the cities of the faithful to challenge the will of Sigmar and to tear down his mighty works. So, chaos obviously is kind of like an infectious disease in a roundabout way in the idea of Warhammer. So, even going back into Warhammer Fantasy, and so like the world that was, the idea that chaos can kind of creep in, and this little niggling thought then spirals out of control, and then you become mutated, and you could become evil and conspire against the cities of Sigmar and the what is perceived as the good of all races. And yeah, been interesting. It's quite an interesting take on the way that chaos works, and chaos also works like that in 40k as well, so it can seep in and turn brother against brother, friend against friend, and so on. So pretty cool stuff. And obviously then you get a bit more information, so you get the Path of the Damned and you get on interrogating heretics. So chaos, once it has found its target, will whisper to the sinful wretch that it is ensnared. To some it will sow seeds of fear and doubt, to others it will promise power and pleasure. What begins as a trickle soon will become a flood, and as the sinful chaos worshipper succumbs to the inevitability of chaos and darkness, chaos will overcome their being and they shall turn to blasphemy and violence. So this is why some people in Mortal Realms become mutants, and they mutate and they might grow horns and such like and become slightly demonic and such like, and that's because of the taint of chaos on them. So it is what it is. Then we move on, we have our page for our Sylvaneth Spite Revenants. So obviously Spite Revenants are savage infantry warriors who fall eagerly upon their foes, rending them with sharp talents. Spite Revenants cannot sing the spirit song of the Sylvaneth, and instead they let out piercing shrieks that fill the air with malicious curses and sap the sanity from nearby enemies. So these are part of the outcasts of Sylvaneth society, so they live on the very kind of edge of that society, and the general Sylvaneth population doesn't really interact with them too much, but however they will utilise them in war because they can be quite handy because they're a little bit vicious and will happily just charge straight forward and smash the hell out of everything and try to rip it all to shreds. So yeah, a bit of interesting information there for you about how Spite Revenants work. So obviously you do get to do your usual stuff, giving them their home glade, their traits, and their unit name as well. And then you get your build guide. So the build guide, very, very similar to the Tree Revenant. So you've got your different heads, though. So all of these are bald without any of them hair. They use claws on both hands as well, so they're not holding any weaponry. So the excess weaponry that you get from your sprue, if you want to, you can kind of trim off pieces, kind of get it as smooth as possible, and then you could make it into, say, things like objective markers and stuff like that later on, if you wanted to. Or you use it as scatter terrain, your choice. Fairly straightforward though. Once you're done, you'll have 5 or look something similar to that. And then you get your paint guide. So the paint guide, obviously very, very similar to all the other Sylvaneth paint guides. It's a fairly decent paint guide in all honesty, utilising the techniques and paints that the magazine has already provided. You can get a pretty decent looking Spite Revenant out of it because it will look half decent. Entirely up to you how you want to go about doing it, but obviously you will want to kind of try and keep it slightly in line with your other Sylvaneth, so then it kind of matches up and works a little bit like that. And yeah, you can do it that way if you wanted to, or if you want to change it up a little bit, why not check out what other kind of trees are near you or anything like that, and colours that trees are, because not all trees are just brown or anything like that. You can get grey, you can get kind of an ashy white, you can get fairly silvery colours or anything like that. You also get some very deep colours in there as well, so if you wanted to check it out, obviously Rogue Hobbies did something about these, and you can use things like violets in there and stuff like that, and even slightly kind of ambery hues, and it will change it up very, very differently. You just want to use them in a bit of moderation. But otherwise, yeah, pretty damn cool stuff. When you're done, if you're following the guide, it's going to look something similar to that. That's actually pretty decent. It's a pretty decent paint job. There are a few things I personally would add to it. So if you've got Bala Brown or anything like that, go over with a little bit of a highlight over that colouring. If you're going for something a bit grayer, you want a bit of a kind of a wispy white colour for the things like the finer branches, and yeah, change it up that way. But that's pretty decent and pretty cool, so not too bad at all. Then moving on, we have our Warscroll page for the Spite Revenant. So they do have a 5-inch move, 2 wounds, 6 bravery, and a 5+ save. They obviously do only have Cruel, Talons, and Fangs for their weaponry, so there's no other weapons for them, so you have to be up close and personal with these guys to actually kind of take advantage of their skills. So pretty cool stuff. And then we move on, we have our destruction tactics, so we get a bit more information about the Loon Boss and how the tactics for the Loon Boss will work. So they are more of a support, they have good defense, but they do have low wounds. So because he's a grot, because you know grots are fairly squishy, but because he's fairly well armored, because he's a boss, he can take a bit more of punishment that way. So really, really good stuff, and a good bit of information about him as well, and how to utilize the way they do. And then you get information about the Fungoid Cave Shaman. So the Cave Shaman is a spellcaster. He's sneaky, but he's very, very fragile. So he can be kind of annihilated very fast, which obviously you don't want that if you're a Gloomspite Gits player. But you know, that's how they work. They are fairly squishy, but they utilize numbers more than anything. So pretty decent there. And then we move on. We got our battle plan. So the battle plan, fairly simple. So you've got your deployment zones, pick your armies, how you're going to go about doing it, whether you're using a Lord Imperatant or Knight Arcanum, Tree Revenants, Vigilors, whatever you want to do. Have a bit of fun with it. You can have a good one with this one, so pretty good stuff. And a bit more interesting as well. And then obviously you get your playthrough highlights from them guys. You also get some core tactics pull out as well. So the core tactics pull out kind of gives us everything to do with things like deployment, objectives, and such like as well. So, and how to utilize spell effects and a bit more information about that. We'll get more and more information about how these tactics work. I'm guessing over the next few coming issues, as long as some of the enhanced rules of how these tactics can be utilized within your games and how command points work and everything like that. So really, really good stuff there though. Then finally, next week is a paint issue. So not a lot to write home about a paint issue, but we do get a Gremlin Earth, which is a technical texture paste. So this is for basing. And we get Dawnstone. So Dawnstone is kind of a medium tone grey. So it's not super dark like Mechanica Standard Grey. It's not super light like, say, Greyseer or Administratum Grey. It's right in between the two. The Gremlin Earth is a grey texture paint, so kind of like a paste. So you will also get a texture spreader, which I'm trying to see if I can find mine, which is one of these little chappies. So this is for applying that. So you want to apply it, you know, fairly thinly over your bases, and you'll get a fairly decent kind of look out of it. So if I grab one of my Fanatics that I'm currently in the process of doing, you'll get a kind of bobbly base, so it's like it's got sand inside it. So, which it kind of generally does really anyway. Anyway, moving on. Issue 51 though is an awesome Loon Boss on giant cave squig. Now, I'm looking forward to this because I like painting squigs. They're really, really good fun. So I'm quite happy with that. A really good mini as well. So good stuff there. Anyway, that is it from me. Thank you very, very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye now.